You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight here live in Austin. Paul Joseph Watson is joining me in the UK. We're going to take your calls and see what you think about the executive actions that Obama has taken. Hardly a day goes by that he doesn't just declare a new law. We saw earlier this week that he gave immunity to corporations that would be working with him in Liberia. Of course, he's going to give immunity and amnesty to illegal aliens tonight. And he's also signaled that he's going to act on his own with climate change. And there's nothing that the Republicans can do to stop him. He's got a long agenda that he's going to enact because he doesn't have to stand for election. And he could care less about how badly he damages the Democrat Party, just as he could care less how badly he damages America. So if you want to call in and give us your opinion, that number is 800-259-9231. That's 800-259-9231. We've got Paul Joseph Watson with us. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to be talking to our reporters in Ferguson because that's another hot spot that is ready to erupt at any moment. Another part of the class war that's being established by the government. But, you know, Paul, we were just talking to Arnold Abbott, the 90-year-old man who has been threatened with arrest multiple times for feeding the homeless in Fort Lauderdale. We got on to Terry Schiavo. This just surfaced today. I saw this for the first time. This is Jonathan Gruber back in the news. Back in May 1997, the same guy that lied to us about health care in Massachusetts with Romney Care. And, of course, Mitt Romney thanked him so much for his economic models that helped to get that passed. And then, of course, he is now bragging about how he lied and deceived the American public about Obamacare in general. But even before that, he was working on, of all things, Paul, he was working on abortion. Back in May 1997, he's the top author on a paper called Abortion Legalization and Child Living Circumstances. Who is the, quote, marginal child? And in this, he makes the argument that children who were born after Roe v. Wade have such better standards of living because of abortion. Actually, he argues that it's a great thing, Paul. Same guy who told us that Obamacare was going to be good, who lied to us about the economics. He wouldn't lie to us about the effects of abortion, would he?
Well, again, it's this whole thing about, you know, you're supposed to not brag about it when you get caught doing these programs through trickery, which is what they did with Gruber and Obamacare. But the New York Times actually ran defense for Obama and said that he had a limited role in crafting Obamacare, even though he went to the White House on a dozen occasions. He met with Obama. He was giving these speeches months before it passed, bragging about the fact that Americans were stupid and that's how they could get it passed. And then literally hours after the New York Times came out and said that his role was limited, a key advisor to Obamacare came out and said that Gruber was, quote, the guru, that he was an important figure in getting Obamacare passed. So they got caught lying. NBC, ABC, CNN have completely buried the story. If you actually look at the graphs of how many times Gruber has been mentioned over the past couple of weeks, it's basically non-existent on the pro-Obama network. So they've managed to some extent to cover it up. What was heartening was the fact that on Twitter for around a week, Gruber was one of the top trending hashtag terms, even amidst all the mindless rubbish about Kim Kardashian's behind and whatever. Gruber maintained its position in those top Twitter trends, which shows that the American people were talking about it, are still talking about it, breaking through that black wall of censorship that was erected by the likes of NBC, ABC, and CNN.
He's one of these masters of propaganda and twisting. He talked about how they had to torture the numbers to make them look the way they wanted to. One of the things that he's torturing in this is the terminology about children. He talks about cohorts as being the children who are actually born. You know, you go from a fetus to a cohort. The only time he talks about children is when he talks about the marginal child. In other words, those who were not born because abortion was legal. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and take your calls right after the break. Stay with us. Paul Joseph Watson is going to be joining us, as well as your calls, and we're going to have reporters from Ferguson at the bottom of the hour.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor just won't quit.
The average person's life is filled with unexpected challenges. Unlock the energy it takes to defeat these daily beasts with Super Male or Super Female Vitality, specifically designed to assist the body in regulating proper hormone balance to create superior vitality in males and females. Supercharge and conquer your world at InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
Aging starts at the cellular level. When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries. During that period, key patented compounds have focused on mitochondrial growth, nerve growth, and rejuvenation. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. We now have the synergistic solution, DNA Force, just one of the key compounds. BioPQQ is backed by major clinical studies and over 175 PubMed-listed published studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life. Introducing Secret 12, the new InfoWars Life vitamin B12 formulation. Most forms of vitamin B12 are highly processed and synthetic and could not be properly absorbed by the body. That's why for real results, so many are having to turn to painful B12 injections, which are known to have higher absorption rates. Now, InfoWarsLife.com is excited to announce that we can bring you our most bioactive, powerful form of B12 that has been developed with our exclusive perfected process. Secret 12 is a binary of nutramedical grade, bioavailable coenzyme forms of B12, methylcobalamin, the same kind used in B12 injections, and adenosylcobalamin. Secret 12 is simply taken by mouth, right on the tongue, and then swallowed. No needles, no injections. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Discover the secret. Secret 12. Secure your revolutionary Secret 12 formula right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Defending the Republic from enemies, foreign and domestic. It's Alex Jones.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight in Austin. We have Paul Joseph Watson with us in the UK, and we're going to be taking your calls this next segment. We're going to be joined at the bottom of the hour by our reporters, Jakari Jackson and Joe Biggs, who are in Ferguson, awaiting the grand jury indictment or lack thereof and the subsequent riots that people fear are going to happen there. But in the last segment, we were talking about this new revelation. Actually, it's an old paper from Jonathan Gruber, the guy who has come out as kind of the poster child for the way the government and particularly the bureaucracy and these experts that they pull up, the way they lie and manipulate the public. Of course, he was instrumental in passing Romneycare. Mitt Romney thanked him profusely for his economic models, which have now proven to be a total lie, just as they were for Obamacare. And he has surfaced in many, many different venues bragging about how he deceived the American public. But let's look at this one paper. This goes back to 1997. I thought it was kind of interesting in the way that it gives a glimpse to their techniques, to their character. In this particular paper, he's talking about the legalization of abortion and how that was a good thing. Because he said, what is the effect on the marginal child? Now, here's how he defines the marginal child. The marginal child is the one who's born when abortion access, who is not born when abortion access increases. So in other words, the child who is aborted is simply a marginal child. Is that marginal child, he says, more or less disadvantaged than the average child? In other words, if a child is killed before it's born, is it more or less advantaged than the average child? So we're killing these children for their own good. It's not for our own good. It's not because we don't want to be bothered with it, because it's an economic hardship or other issues, or because we just don't understand what's going on. No, they're actually, the marginal child is better. And he talks about the children who are actually born. He calls them cohorts. He says, we find that cohorts, I think that's an interesting term, cohorts born after abortion was legalized experienced a significant reduction in the number of adverse incomes. Our estimates imply that the marginal child who was not born due to legalization would have been 70% more likely to live in a single-parent family, 40% more likely to live in poverty, 50% more likely to receive welfare, 35% more likely to die as an infant. So let's just kill them, and they're better off. So that's what he's saying. The marginal child is better off. That's the kind of lies that the master technician behind Romneycare, which is the same thing as Obamacare, that's what Peter Gruber has been cutting his teeth on for a long time. Jonathan Gruber. Sorry, I keep calling him Peter Gruber because there's a Peter Gruber in the movie industry, and I keep referring back. But Jonathan Gruber. You want to comment on that, Paul, before we take a call?
Yeah, well, it's the kind of rhetoric that just dehumanizes life. That's what it sounds like to me. The major concern now, obviously, as we've illustrated with all these campus videos where we send out Joe Biggs, for example, other people have done it too, where college students will sign petitions advocating post-birth abortions.
Yes.
And this is also something that the establishment media has jumped on board with to some extent. MSNBC's Melissa Harris Perry, who of course said the children belong to the state, she said newborn infants don't count as being considered, quote, alive. So this is an entree to legitimizing infanticide. We had the academic paper a couple of years ago, I think, out of the University of Melbourne, which argued that after-birth abortion should be permissible, this is a quote, including in cases where the newborn is not disabled. So they're talking about after-birth abortion, infanticide, like you have in China, where women are grabbed off the street, drugged, given forced abortions, the baby's dumped in a bucket. And now the academia in the West and the media in the United States is, in a creeping fashion, beginning to advocate infanticide, post-birth abortion. So that's how deep down the rabbit hole this has gone now.
And they portrayed this as, oh, they're doing it for the sake of the child. The child would have been perhaps at a 35% higher chance of living in this kind of condition in a single parent home, as if that was something that we saved them from. But of course, it's the industry, isn't it, Paul? Rob Dew just put this article on my desk. Former abortion clinic director says, our goal was 3 to 5 abortions per student. This was in Round Rock, Texas, right here around Austin. Abortion clinics are businesses, they point out, just like muffler shops or fast food restaurants. And that's the kind of justification, the kind of tortured logic that we see happening. And I think it's really kind of a slippery slope, like we were just talking to Arnold Abbott, the 90-year-old who was trying to feed the homeless. When you're willing to take food out of the mouths of homeless people or out of somebody who is sick and helpless like Terry Schiavo, arresting people who are trying to feed that person, give that person water, when you're willing to do that, when people will stand by and watch homeless people be shot and brutalized on the streets, that is the slippery slope for our entire country, because now we're entering into an area where they're going to eventually do that to everybody, because that's just training for them, isn't it?
Well, I mean, on the point you just mentioned, Planned Parenthood got its start by putting the abortion clinics in poor black areas.
Yes.
And they bragged about it at the time.
Yeah.
And then their supporters, the feminist icons like Marie Stopes, you know, the woman who wrote love letters to Hitler, she bragged about it too. So that's how they make their money, is by aborting predominantly black babies in poor areas, and then they brag about it. So it gives you an insight into their motivations.
Absolutely. We don't have too much more time left in this segment, but we got a couple of segments here, and I said we'd take some calls. We got some people on the line. Let's go to Larry in Michigan. Larry, you want to talk about immigration?
David, how are you doing today?
Doing good. What do you want to say?
Okay, two things. I want to talk about immigration, and then I got a question I'd like for you to ask Ron or